Hi guys, welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'm going to be teaching you how to use and counter MEW. MEW is an acronym for Mona, Eula, and Wanderer, which are the three characters in the deck. After the most recent balance changes involving Yelan and Underwater Treasure Hunt, almost the entire meta, which mainly consisted of combo decks, have been wiped out since every dice generating engine has been nerfed. What remains in the meta are decks which have been unaffected by the changes, and one such deck is MEW. This here is the deck list which I will be using throughout this guide. While certain cards may vary, these highlighted cards will always be in any MEW deck. Links to the deck screenshot as well as the in-game deck code are available in the description below. MEW makes use of Wanderer's ability to attack the next character on standby to endlessly swirl the opponent. This deck also uses cards like Wagner and Timaeus to grant huge discounts for equipment, which allow the Wanderer to equip them at a low cost and deal even more damage. Then, once the Wanderer has fallen, Eula can swoop in with the Wolf's Gravestone and her ability to freeze to clean up anyone left standing. In this section, we will be going over why we use each character card. This guide will not go through each of their skills in detail, as that information is available in the game. Mona. Before the Wanderer can start swirling, we first need to apply an element on the opponent. Mona is the perfect choice for elemental application thanks to her passive ability, which allows her to fast action switch, as well as her hydro element, which is difficult to cleanse as most characters that can apply an element to themselves, like Xingqiu, Barbara, and Kokomi, cannot cleanse hydro. In addition, her elemental skill hits twice, once on the initial hit and once from the summon created. Wanderer. Although Eula comes second in the acronym MEW, the Wanderer is actually the second character that we will switch to in this deck. After using his elemental skill, the Wanderer gains 2 stacks of Wind Favored, which increase the damage of his normal attacks by 2 damage and causes them to target the next character on standby instead. This makes it impossible to avoid getting swirled by him if there are at least 2 of your characters which are affected by an element. This endless swirling is the source of damage for MEW, and it is why the Wanderer is the best Anemo character for this job. Eula. Eula is our cleanup crew in this deck. Since we have been swirling Hydro throughout the entire game, a cryo character such as Eula is perfect for cleaning up thanks to her ability to freeze the opponent. In addition, Eula can equip the Wolf's Gravestone, which makes the cleanup process even more efficient. Now, let's go over the pros and cons of this deck. As for the pros, MEW deals very high damage in the first 3 rounds. It is also very efficient with dice, as the Wanderer and Eula can equip weapons and artifacts without even losing out on attacks. And also, the ability to freeze is a versatile tool that can come in clutch in many scenarios. Now moving on to the cons, the biggest drawback of MEW is that this deck is extremely dependent on swirling. If you are unable to swirl endlessly for some reason, you will lose out on a lot of damage and probably lose the game. And thus, this deck instantly loses the Joyous Celebration, although no one really runs this card. On top of that, MEW also has a hard time dealing with stall decks with plenty of heals, such as the Barbara Ningguang Kokomi deck. Now let's go over the most important part of using any deck, our game plan. In round 1, our plan is always to use Mona's elemental skill, followed by some ramp, and then end our round. We need to make sure that we end our round first, which is why we only use 1 attack. This is because by ending our round first, we guarantee ourselves a swirl on round 2. How this works is that the summon created by Mona's elemental skill will apply Hydro to the character that the opponent ends their round on. Then, since we start first on round 2, we can immediately fast action switch to the Wanderer and swirl using his elemental skill. In round 2, we now equip any available weapons and artifacts on the Wanderer, fast action switch to him, and swirl using his elemental skill. Then, we can continue swirling endlessly using his elemental skill and enhance normal attacks, depending on which of the opponent's characters are affected by Hydro. This endless swirling can continue for as long as you have dice, or until the Wanderer falls. Once the Wanderer falls, which usually happens in the end of round 2 or at the start of round 3, we then move on to the last phase, cleaning up. In this phase, we simply send out Eula and use her elemental skill to freeze the opponent and sweep them all up. If the scenario calls for it, we can also equip the Wolf's Gravestone on her. Now let's move on to the fine details of our game plan. When choosing cards to replace in our starting hand, we should always prioritize ramp cards and cards that we can use after Mona's elemental skill in round 1, such as Liban, Paimon, Timaeus, Wagner, Instructor's Cap, and either Catalyst. In round 1, in the rare case that we do not have enough suitable cards to spend our dice on after using Mona's elemental skill, we can just switch to the Wanderer and start swirling right away from round 1. However, this does mean that we will not be able to equip weapons and artifacts on Wanderer anymore, which will result in less overall damage. Sometimes, we may not even have enough Hydro dice for Mona's elemental skill. In this case, we can choose to use Mona's normal attack, which gives the opponent the option of switching away to avoid swirls, or tune a few dice for her elemental skill. Usually, tuning dice is better since our deck is heavily reliant on swirls. The artifact that we want to equip on the Wanderer is the Instructor's Cap because it gives 3 dice for just the cost of 2. If we equip this on round 1 or for free via Timaeus, then this artifact grants 3 extra dice on round 2, which is enough for 1 additional attack. If we do not have this card, Gilded Dreams is fine too since it will also draw up to 2 cards for us. Sometimes our opponents will force us to keep using the Wanderer's elemental skill to swirl, which deals 1 less base damage than its enhanced normal attack and costs more Anemo dice. If we run out of Anemo dice, it is perfectly fine to use its normal attacks instead, even if they don't swirl anything, since it will only result in 1 less damage overall, or 2 less damage if the Wanderer has 1000 Floating Dreams equipped. Some opponents might switch in a way that makes it impossible for us to swirl. In this case, we can just attack again with Mona to reapply Hydro. Although this is slow, it is better than not swirling anything at all. Now that we understand how to use MEW, we should also learn how to counter it, regardless of whether we are planning to use or play against it. The key to countering MEW stems from the cons we mentioned earlier. Recall that MEW is extremely dependent on swirling. Hence, we should do everything we can to stop the Wanderer from swirling us endlessly. One simple way to counter MEW is to make sure that we end our round first in round 1. If we do that, and MEW goes for their main game plan of using Mona's elemental skill and ending their round, then we can switch off of our character affected by Hydro in round 2, leaving them with nothing to swirl. Thus, if MEW wants to swirl, they are forced to immediately swirl with the Wanderer on round 1, which means that they can't equip weapons and artifacts on him for free anymore, resulting in less damage overall for them. A more surefire way of countering MEW is to do the above, but with a stall deck that has plenty of healing. Hydro Resonance is especially cruel to MEW since it heals all of your characters at once. If you can hold out comfortably until round 4 against MEW, MEW will run out of steam like most aggro decks, and their damage output will only go down from there. If that's not enough for you, you can also run Joyous Celebration in your deck to completely shut down MEW, as long as your deck rotation and character's elements are suitable for using Joyous. Usually, you will let them swirl you once on round 2, as it is unavoidable if you don't end your round first. Then, you can use Joyous Celebration, leaving them with nothing to swirl. In conclusion, MEW is an exceptionally strong aggro deck when the conditions are right for it. It is also very easy to use due to its simple and fixed game plan. However, this fixed game plan also means that it is easy to devise a way to counter it. It also struggles to decks with a lot of healing. Here is a game where I used MEW, which you can use as an example for your own games. Try to observe where the points mentioned earlier come up in this game. That's all I have for you. I hope you were able to learn everything you needed to know about MEW. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
Let me scry. see about that.
Are you sure it has to be me? Fine. Let's get this over with.
Gears of the storm!
Squall and Fury! Falling into the abyss.
Beg for mercy. Time didn't stop for me. The stars are fading.
Crushed! Quick! Drop the curtains.
Surprise! Vengeance will be mine. What detail did I miss?